Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am moving and grooving this morning, but just wanted to take a moment to send a little Friday love. So I have this plant in my office at work, and it's a fern. And for those who know plants, ferns grow very easily outside in the right environments, from what I'm told. But when it comes to taking care of them inside, you need the right environment, the right lighting, the right things for them to really flourish. So during my third year as principal, third or fourth year as principal, I was given this fern plant, by my staff for Principal Appreciation Week. And on the front of it, they wrote, "Bloom where you are planted." And that's significant because my motto for my team that year was "Bloom where you are planted." Because in that particular year, we had a major shakeup within our district that I was in at that time, where staff were all being reassigned to different buildings because we went from being kindergarten through sixth grade spaces to having grade level centers and coming right out of COVID. And so in that space, we had a lot of people who were moved, a lot of changes that had to occur, because you had people who needed the right certifications in the right spots. You had to make sure people had middle school certifications to go teach at the middle school, have the right endorsements, all the things, tons of different moving pieces. But nonetheless, people's cheese was definitely moved in some really big ways. And when you are working in a space, you become very connected to the space that you are a part of. That becomes a second home for you. So it's really not as simple a lot of times as I'm just going to move schools. Like, it's a shifting community. It's a different atmosphere. It's different folks. It's different leadership. It's different kids, different families, all those things. So our motto that year was "Bloom where you are planted." You have been planted at this school. And so our goal as a collective and as individuals has to be for us to bloom where we are planted. Which means that no matter what soil I've just been moved to, what pot, what environment, what space I've just been moved to, I am going to do the best that I can to grow and mature and be my best, most vibrant, most beautifully amazing self in this space, because this is where I've been planted. And that is so significant. So they gave me this plant. And on the front of it, they said, "Bloom where you are planted." And I was loving it. It's just absolutely beautiful. But I do not have a green thumb. Like at all. Like at all. Like it's sad. I have the ability to kill succulents. I have the ability to, it's rough, but I'm changing it, and I'm going to speak life. I'm learning. So with this beautiful fern plant that I was given, I put it in my house, and it started to die. And so when I got a new office, I put it in my office, and it wasn't enough light. It started to die. I moved to a new district and a new school, and it was okay. It was relatively alive. But it wasn't flourishing, but it was alive. And there was a team member I had who taught fourth grade, and he had a green thumb. He loved plants. And as a part of the work and the community piece that his students contributed to our school, they would take care of the plants around the school and make sure that they were green, that they were vibrant. He taught them the essentials of plant care and just putting the plants in the right light and making sure that they could thrive in the right spaces. So I asked if he could take my plant and care for it and keep her alive throughout the year. And he did. He took that plant and he put it in one of the spaces with a lot of lighting in one of the hallway staircase corridors. And him and his students worked on that plant. And they would water it, they would trim it, all the things. And at the end of the school year, he would just tell me what I needed to do to keep it going, because he was gone for the summer. And his kids were gone for the summer. And I would be like, oh my Lord. And every summer that plant would dwindle and whittle down, start shriveling up over the course of them 2.5, 3 months, because I didn't know how to really take care of it. And so when he would come back, his kids would go back to work on it and reboost it. Well, one thing that I noticed is that during the summertime and throughout the school year, when I would go to check on the plant from time to time, I would notice that there was a lot of water just settled up at the bottom of the plastic container that we put underneath the pot. The pot that they gave me was really beautifully made, and it kind of came up, and then it had like a stand that it sat in. And what that meant, though, is that the water would pour right out, and there was a distance between the actual root of the pot, bottom of the pot, and where the water would enter. So the water was sitting there because it didn't have space to soak up unless it was high enough. So once I realized that, I didn't know how to fix it, but I was like, okay, we could just make sure we add enough water so that it could soak it up and we won't have this problem. And we got to empty out this nasty water. I got a job promotion, moved to a different office space, and the ladies in that space were masterful and are masterful at taking care of plants. They are dynamic. They are gifted. Gifted. And in that space, I reached out. I asked the ladies, I said, can you please help me take care of my plant? I need help. I don't know what to do. And all of my little plants are dying. My succulents are dying. My fern is dying. Like, it's difficult. And the lady said, no problem, I got it. And there were 2 or 3 ladies that would just come take care of different plants in my office. One was really, really good at succulents and the fern. The other one is really good at the regular plants, like the vine type plants. And the other one would just come and check in from time to time to make sure everything was good. And she knew the tips and tricks to make sure those little bugs stay away when the bugs started swarming towards the plants. So between these 3 ladies, they kept my plants alive and beautiful. But 2 of them retired. One of them retired. I'm like, oh my gosh, who's going to take care of that part? So the other lady stepped in. And 2 of the ladies just kept taking care of my plants. And then the second lady retired. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who's going to take care of my plants? They're going to die. And one of the ladies is just absolutely amazing. She's such a beautiful soul. And she just kept taking care of them. And my plants are actually thriving more than they were any of the other times, because it's one consistent hand with one consistent style of care taking care of the plants instead of 3 hands. And I think that's powerful because the consistency allows for the plant to have what it needs without continual change that's unnecessary. We can have a lot of people helping us. We can have a lot of people doing the work, thinking that we're splitting it up to make it easier. But sometimes when we have too many hands on the same thing, it slows down the progress and it slows down the work because there are too many hands in the pot. So when we talk about blooming where we're planted, we also have to be mindful of how we're tending to the plant in the soil so that we're not oversaturating, we're not overwatering, we're not overtouching, we're not overcaring. Because when we put too many hands on it, it can die. It can be, the growth can slow down. Yesterday, well, let me back up. Most recently, I was at a store that was going out of business. And they had these little bitty pots of fake plants. And they were just so cute. Little bitty, tiny, white ceramic pot with the little plant. And it's just super tiny cute. And for people like me who don't always do a great job of keeping things alive that are real and green, it's a nice way of still having something that looks green and beautiful that you can't kill. And so I bought a bunch of these little plants, put them on the tables for my leadership team, my principals, assistant principals, and instructional coaches when we had our meeting yesterday. And my question to them was, what is your bloom word this year? What is your bloom word? I'm giving you a plant. You can't kill this plant. You might drop the ceramic and that might break, but the plant's not going to die because it's not alive, right? But what is your bloom word? What is that word that represents how you want to grow exactly where you are this year? How do you want to bloom in the space, in the soil, in the environment, in the position in which you've been planted this year? And I had them to think of that word and then to share it with their table groups, which were going to be their professional learning communities for the year, for the first half of the school year. And these are the groups of people that they're going to come together, do some intentional learning and thought partnership with in their growth this year. So with that, everybody shared their pieces and talked about like how they really want to grow, and then how we're going to connect and support each other in that space over the course of the next several weeks. When I got back to my office, I looked down at my fern, and it is growing so much that the lady who helps me take care of it was like, we have to get a new pot. You need to get a really big pot for it. We need some new topsoil, and we need a stand to put it in so that it's higher up. I was like, wow. She was like, yeah, it's too big now. It's growing too big. It's so beautiful, but it can't continue to grow. It's starting to die easy because it doesn't have the necessary space to grow. That was important because when I first brought that plant to her to fix it, she noticed what I said earlier, that the base of the pot that I have it in was too thick and the water wasn't getting to it. It was dying. So she did an emergency procedure on my plant. She brought in some garbage bags. She brought in a whole tub of soil in the middle of my office. Took that plant out of the pot, pulled away the parts of the roots that weren't right, repotted it in fresh soil because it had never been repotted since I had it for like 4 years. She repotted it, put fresh soil in, and put it back in that same pot I had. And then she looked at it and she said, the bottom of this has to come off because that's why your plant's not thriving. It's not getting enough water. The water can't get to it because there's too much space between the base of the pot. She said, this has to come off. So she took off that bottom stand of the pot. And I was like, oh, it's so pretty though. But that pretty piece was actually interfering with my plant getting the proper nutrients and water. The moment that bottom piece came off, it was able to really use the fresh soil and the fresh food and nutrients that she put into the pot, into the plant. And within a day, you saw an immediate difference. The plant wasn't drooped down and sad looking. It was perked up. It was sprouting. It was high. It was perky. It was just, you saw it. Within 2 weeks, you saw fresh fern stems growing. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's thriving already. Because she put it in the right soil. She removed the barrier from the bottom. No matter how pretty it was an interference and a barrier to the plant getting what it needed. She put it back in the space that it needed to be in for it to thrive. And now, 3 years later, she's like, this plant has grown so beautiful. But once again, it needs a change because it's healthy now. It's healthy and it's thriving, and it needs a bigger space or it's going to start to die. The growth that you're seeing is going to start to regress. You have to get a bigger pot. You have to get a stand to put it on that's higher than what you currently have it on, so that it can really reach the sun. And you need some new soil. That hit me when I came back to my office yesterday, and I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to add a picture to this video so you can see the wording on the front, bloom where you're planted. And so you can see the beauty and the vibrance of this fern plant. But I think it's important to note a couple of things. At the beginning of that year, of the year that I got that plant, I used that term with my team to encourage them and to let them know that they were going to be okay. And it was our responsibility to be intentional with our collective and individual success for us to bloom where we had each been planted at that school. They spoke that same love and life back into me by giving me that plant. I reached out to different team members and different people in my sphere so that they could help me to be able to grow and be intentional as well. But I needed people around me who were really good at plants to help me take care of that fern, because it was not my niche. In that, I had to tap into the layers of wisdom and knowledge that were in my sphere. Because that wisdom and knowledge that was around me are the people who helped me to keep the plant alive at the different iterations of my work, of my atmospheres. And they had different layers of knowledge. That's important. Because by the time I got to the lady who's currently helping me, her level of knowledge is way above everybody else's. And she has one consistent way of doing it that's very powerful and beautiful and consistent, that has now allowed that same plant to go from making it to thriving. To the point where now it's thrived so much that it needs new soil and a new pot and a new stand because it's higher than ever before. So when we think about blooming where we're planted and thinking about the scripture, 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verses 17 through 24 just really talk about the power of blooming where we're planted. Be where we were and be content where we are with where God has placed us, so that we can continue to thrive and do the work that He's called us to do. He's called us to a space, to a place, for a season, for a reason, to do the work of His hands. So wherever God has placed you, He desires for you to be content, not in a way of being lazy, not in a way of not being intentional, but being content with where you are and doing the work that He's called you to do. But also listening and paying attention to know that sometimes you got to be attentive. You always have to be attentive. You always have to be attentive. You cannot be passive in your placement. You can't have too many people stirring up the pot because it's going to slow down the growth. You have to make sure that you have it in the right soil. You have to make sure that you're giving it the right nutrients. You have to make sure you're removing the barriers and identifying the problems and seeing what the things are until it gets to a place of thriving and consistency and health. And once it gets to that place of thriving and consistency and health, then you need to pay attention to when it's the right time to put it in new soil to make sure that it continues to get what it needs so it doesn't regress. If I had taken that same plant, and put it in a big pot right away, it wouldn't have did any good because it still wasn't getting water or nutrients. The dead leaves hadn't been trimmed away. It needed to go through the process of healing and intentional care to get healthy. But now that it's healthy, now that it's thriving, now that it's huge, it needs a new pot. It needs a space so it can continue to expand and grow and survive and be vibrant. It needs something higher to hold it up and make it closer to the sun because it's so big, but it needs sunlight to continue to thrive. It needs fresh soil once it gets repotted and fresh nutrients. As God is working in our lives, He requires us to be intentional. And there's going to come a time in a season where we have different moves and shifts. But where He puts us each and every time, it is our role and our responsibility to make sure we're thriving where we are planted, that we are blooming where we are planted, that we're thinking about what soil and nutrients do we need in this season to be our best, what needs to be cut away and trimmed away, what are the barriers that need to be removed that are keeping us from being our best selves, and what do we do to continue to move forward in the space that God is putting us in. And then who are the people? Who are the people that need to be a part of the village of care? If it wasn't for the people God kept putting in my life and has continued to put in my life and in my atmosphere, that plant would have been good and dead. But because God has continued to place them in my atmosphere, and I was receptive and I reached out and asked for help, and then I let them do what they do, the plant is doing amazingly well. So I close with this. Bloom where you are planted. Pay attention to your soil. Remove the barriers that are interfering with your nutrients. Let God be your love and your light. Let God fill you. Let God heal you. Let God restore you. But know that there will also be a season where your growth is going to go beyond the pot that you're in. And God is going to require for you to go get a new pot and to get some new soil and to get some new people to help you continue. That beautiful lady, she's retiring at the end of this year. I'm going to have to find somebody else to help me with that pot. I'm going to have to learn how to take care of it. But we got to listen and trust God in the process. Don't try to move before your time. And don't ignore the work that needs to be done. We have to listen. We have to be attentive. We have to be consistent. And we have to be mindful of who we allow in our atmosphere. But more than anything, it's our responsibility to sit and listen to God so that we can bloom where He has planted us, so that we are doing the work that He has created for us to do, and that we can move when He says move and be still when He says be still. Have a blessed Friday.